Let's get started with our first story. Mayor Nurmagomedov has officially fired back at Petr after the former UFC bantamweight champion accused him of enjoying what Yan called Khabib privilege. And this is a heated situation because whenever the Nurmagomedov name is brought up, especially tied to Khabib, it carries massive weight in the MMA world. But Umar, he wasn't having any of it. To give this some context, remember that Umar suffered the first loss of his professional career back at UFC 3-1 this past January. That was in his title bid against Dvalishvili, where the machine once again showed why he's one of the toughest fighters in the sport. Since then, Umar hasn't fought, and it's that inactivity that Petr decided to target. Yan pointed out that not everyone can afford to sit on the sidelines. He compared it to his own situation. Just a few months ago, Yan accepted a fight with Marcus McGee, a matchup many critics labeled high risk, low reward. Yan had everything to lose and very little to gain, but he stepped in, fought hard, and walked away with a unanimous decision victory. His point was simple. He can't afford to stay inactive. In his eyes, Umar can, and the only reason is because of his last name. That's when Yan dropped the bomb. He accused Umar of getting special treatment, claiming that his cousin, the legendary Khabib Nurmagomedov, gives him advantages other fighters don't get. According to Yan, Umar has the luxury of time, influence, and the aura of being part of the Nurmagomedov family. But Worm wasn't about to let that slide. At a recent press conference, he clapped back hard. Outward pointed directly to both men's performances against Merab. He reminded everyone that Yan was completely dominated when he fought the machine back in Umar argued that his fight was a different story. In his words, he actually won the first 2 rounds before Merab's relentless pace finally wore him down. Umar said, "I don't agree with it. Look at his fight with Merab. He got destroyed. Look at my fight. We had a competitive fight." And honestly, it's a fair point. This whole debate shows how differently fighters view setbacks. Yan frames inactivity as a sign of privilege, while Umar frames it as strategy, recovering, improving, and waiting for the right moment to come back stronger. So what's next? Merab is already set to defend his title against Corey Sandhagen at UFC 320 in October. As for Umar, rumors are swirling about a possible return against Mario Bautista later this year. That would be a crucial fight to remind the division that he's still one of the most dangerous names at 35. Bottom line, whether it's Khabib privilege or not, Umar Nurmagomedov isn't backing down, and if he makes a statement in his return, he'll be right back in the mix for another title shot. Before moving to the next news, we have one quick request for you. We're constantly working on improving our content to earn your love and support. That's why we truly appreciate it if you could take just a moment to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Now moving on, let's talk about Arman Tsarukyan, one of the most talked about contenders in the lightweight division. Recently, Arman made headlines after revealing some behind the scenes details about Ilia Topuria, the current lightweight champion. According to Tsarukyan, Topuria has no interest in returning to the octagon anytime soon. In fact, Arman claimed that Topuria has told the UFC he does not want to fight again until January or February of next year. For a hungry contender like Tsarukyan, that news was extremely frustrating. Sitting on the sidelines for almost half a year is not an option for him, and he's made it very clear that he refuses to wait around while others get opportunities. Instead, Tsarukyan is now shifting his focus toward other potential opponents. He specifically mentioned names like Justin Gaethje, Dan Hooker, and Paddy Pimblett as options for his next fight. According to Arman, early talks with the UFC have already taken place, and the promotion is eyeing possible dates in October or November, with locations like Abu Dhabi or Qatar being strongly considered. When asked which matchup he preferred, Tsarukyan did not hesitate. He said his #1 choice would be Paddy Pimblett, a fight that he believes makes sense for both competitive and business reasons. This all comes in the aftermath of Tsarukyan accusing Topuria of ducking him following Ilia's historic win over Charles Oliveira at UFC 317. That was the night Topuria became lightweight champion, shocking the world and cementing his place at the top. Many fans and analysts believed that Tsarukyan should have been next in line. After all, Arman had already defeated Oliveira back at UFC 300 in one of his best performances to date. Not only that, but Tsarukyan was originally scheduled to challenge Islam Makhachev for the lightweight belt at UFC 311 before a back injury forced him out of the fight. With Tsarukyan sidelined, Oliveira stepped in and got the opportunity instead, something that left Arman deeply frustrated. From Tsarukyan's perspective, it's easy to understand why he feels overlooked. He has put in the work, earned big wins, and was on the cusp of a title shot, only for circumstances outside his control to push him back down the ladder. Now with Topuria choosing to delay his next fight, Tsarukyan is determined to keep moving forward. Strategically, this move makes sense. A fight against Justin Gaethje would be massive. Gaethje is known for his violent, fan-friendly style, and beating him would instantly elevate Tsarukyan's star power. A matchup with Dan Hooker would be equally exciting, providing a clash of striking styles and a test against one of the most durable veterans in the division. But the real golden ticket, at least in Tsarukyan's eyes, is Paddy Pimblett. A victory over the baddie would not only bring a massive payday, but also propel him into mainstream attention, given the hype and fan following that Pimblett carries. Either way, one thing is clear: Arman Tsarukyan is not waiting for Ilia Topuria. He wants to stay active, he wants to keep proving himself, and he wants to secure his rightful place in the title picture. And that's exactly the kind of attitude fans respect from a true contender. Now let's switch gears to Islam Makhachev, who is currently deep in preparation for his highly anticipated welterweight debut against Jack Della Maddalena. This isn't just another fight for Islam, it's a career-defining move. For years, fans and analysts have debated whether Makhachev would eventually outgrow lightweight, given the brutal weight cuts he endured to make 55 pounds. Now, instead of pushing his body to its absolute limits, Islam is moving up and embracing the opportunity to test himself against bigger, stronger competition at 170. But more than that, this transition is about chasing greatness. Islam has his eyes set on becoming a two-division champion, something that only a handful of UFC fighters in history have accomplished. However, things get a lot more intriguing when you take into account his recent comments. In a surprisingly candid moment, Makhachev admitted that he's not even sure if he can physically make the lightweight limit again. That revelation sent shockwaves across the MMA community because for the longest time, fans have been waiting for the potential super fight between Islam and the reigning featherweight champion, Ilia Topuria. Many saw that clash as the next massive champ versus champ showdown that could generate historic numbers. But if Islam can no longer safely cut down to 155, that matchup instantly becomes a lot more complicated. At Friday's Eagle FC press conference, Islam was asked directly about this issue, and his answer was cautious but honest. He didn't completely close the door on returning to lightweight, but he made it clear that it may not be realistic moving forward. Considering how much harder weight cutting gets as fighters age and continue to put on muscle mass, his concerns make perfect sense. Still, the uncertainty leaves fans wondering if one of the most exciting potential fights in recent memory will ever actually happen. For now, all the focus is on his upcoming challenge at welterweight. Jack Della Maddalena is no pushover. He's one of the most dangerous strikers in the division, with a reputation for finishing fights in spectacular fashion. If Makhachev manages to walk through Jack and capture the welterweight belt, his legacy will skyrocket. He would join the elite list of two-division champions, cementing his place among the greatest fighters to ever step inside the octagon. But the bigger question remains, will fans ever see that dream matchup with Ilia Topuria? As of now, the answer is highly uncertain. If Islam establishes himself at welterweight, there may be little incentive for him to go through the hell of cutting weight again just for one super fight. On the flip side, if Ilia eventually moves up, that door could reopen in the future. Either way, Islam Makhachev's decision to move up has completely reshaped the landscape of two divisions, and fans are watching closely to see how this next chapter of his career unfolds. Speaking of controversy, Nate Diaz has once again made headlines, this time criticizing Khamzat Chimaev's performance at UFC 319. Diaz didn't hold back at all, and in typical Nate fashion, he went straight for the jugular. He called Chimaev a big ol' scared child. That's a heavy statement, especially considering how dominant Chimaev has looked throughout his career, but Nate made it clear why he felt that way. According to Diaz, the problem wasn't that Chimaev won, it was how he won. Nate argued that Chimaev avoided striking exchanges with Dricus du Plessis, choosing instead to wrestle him for nearly 5 rounds. To Nate, this wasn't the mark of a fearless fighter looking for a finish, but rather of someone playing it safe. Diaz claimed that Chimaev was afraid of letting du Plessis back up to his feet, and that's why he spent so much time holding him down, landing what Nate described as soft punches, rather than risking a knockout attempt or giving his opponent a chance to escape. In a conversation with Sneeko, Diaz explained his perspective in detail. He said, "He's supposed to be the big scary guy, right? And remember when he had him inside control and he's holding him, dominating him, right? And then he lets go and hits him a little bit. Little soft punches. That's what people don't understand about the style. Like, that type of fighter is a scared fighter. He's scared for his life. He's afraid that if he lets go to hit him hard, he might get up and get away from him. So that's a scared style to me. He comes off as this big intimidating guy, but it's a big old scared child." For Diaz, this wasn't just about one fight. It was about the mentality of a fighter. He's always believed that true warriors step into the cage ready to risk it all, whether it means knocking someone out or getting knocked out themselves. Playing it safe and holding position for 5 rounds just doesn't align with Nate's vision of what makes a fighter truly great. Now, of course, not everyone agrees with Nate's assessment. Some fans believe his criticism is unfair, pointing out that Chimaev dominated du Plessis and didn't give him any real openings to win. To them, that level of control proves how good Chimaev actually is. After all, isn't the goal of MMA to win fights and minimize risks? Why should a fighter be labeled scared just because he chose the smarter, more strategic approach? But for Diaz, fighting has never just been about winning on paper. It's about proving something deeper. It's about showing heart, courage, and a willingness to go out on your shield. That's why his words cut so deep. He's holding Chimaev to a different standard, one rooted in the old school mentality of fighting for honor rather than just the scoreboard. Either way, the comments set the MMA world buzzing. Some praised Nate for speaking his truth, while others felt he was simply stirring the pot. But one thing is undeniable: when Nate Diaz speaks, the community listens. And once again, he reminded everyone why his voice still carries so much weight in the fight game. Next up, let's revisit a fight that never actually took place inside the octagon, but still gets talked about to this day: Daniel Cormier versus Brock Lesnar. Even years later, the mere idea of that clash continues to fuel debates among MMA fans. Recently, DC shed some light on why he believes that fight would have been one of the easiest matchups of his career. Cormier, who became a 2-division UFC champion, etched his name in history when he knocked out Stipe Miocic to capture the heavyweight belt. That night, the moment was even more electrifying because Brock Lesnar, one of the biggest stars in combat sports, stormed into the cage and confronted Cormier. The WWE legend's presence instantly created hype and set the stage for what looked like a blockbuster fight. Fans expected fireworks, and for a short while it felt inevitable that Cormier and Lesnar would meet inside the octagon. But as history shows, the fight never materialized. Lesnar eventually returned to professional wrestling, and the matchup that once had fans buzzing was left on the shelf. Looking back now, Cormier believes it was a missed opportunity for him, but not because of the challenge Lesnar presented. Instead, DC openly admits that he viewed the fight as a safe matchup, even calling it one of the easiest he could have had at heavyweight. Cormier explained his reasoning by referencing what his teammate Cain Velasquez did to Lesnar years earlier. Cain dominated Brock with relentless pressure, speed, and cardio, exposing weaknesses that DC also felt confident he could exploit. Cormier even pointed out that Lesnar still carries the scar under his eye from when Cain kneed him in the face during their fight. To DC, those vulnerabilities made Lesnar the golden goose, a massive payday combined with a highly winnable fight. Of course, we'll never know exactly how that showdown would have played out. Lesnar's size, wrestling credentials, and raw power always made him dangerous, but Cormier's skills, experience, and composure would have presented a tough challenge. Still, it's fascinating to hear Cormier admit so openly that he considered Brock to be his easiest possible matchup at heavyweight. Finally, circling back to Islam Makhachev, the reigning lightweight king turned welterweight contender. He's already looking beyond his upcoming welterweight title fight with Jack Della Maddalena. In a recent interview, Islam revealed that he has his eyes on something even bigger, a potential super fight with the surging featherweight champion, Ilia Topuria. Islam didn't shy away from admitting that Topuria intrigues him. He said, "There's some intrigue with Topuria. I'm also interested in that fight. Maybe we can make some kind of super fight. Or, as I said, we'll see about the weight." That's a massive statement, especially considering the size gap between the two and Islam's own doubts about whether he could realistically cut back down to lightweight. Still, when a fighter of his caliber mentions a matchup like this, it instantly sets the MMA world buzzing. The idea of Makhachev versus Topuria is nothing short of electrifying. Two champions from two different divisions, both undefeated in title fights, both riding waves of dominance in their own right. Stylistically, it's the classic clash: Topuria, the explosive striker with knockout power in both hands, against Islam, the relentless grappler with suffocating control and underrated striking. It's the type of matchup that doesn't just sell pay-per-views, it defines eras. But before any super fight talk becomes reality, Islam has an enormous task in front of him. Jack Della Maddalena, the Australian sensation, shocked the world earlier this year by defeating Belal Muhammad at UFC 315 to claim the welterweight strap. His boxing, pressure, and composure under fire have made him one of the most dangerous contenders in the sport. Their fight is expected to take place this November at Madison Square Garden, and the stakes couldn't be higher. If Islam wins, he will become a rare two-division champion, cementing his place among the all-time greats. Let's also remember just how remarkable Islam's journey has been. Beginning his professional career in 2010, he tore through the regional scene with a 7-0 record before joining the UFC in 2015. Since then, he's gone 16-1 inside the octagon, with iconic wins over Renato Moicano, Charles Oliveira, Dustin Poirier, and Alexander Volkanovski, whom he defeated twice. His only setback was nearly a decade ago, back in 2015 against Adriano Martin. Since then, he's been nearly flawless, capturing the lightweight title at UFC 280, defending it 5 times, and later vacating it in 2025 to chase welterweight glory. His career record now stands at a jaw-dropping 2. If Islam manages to dethrone Jack Della Maddalena and secure the welterweight crown, his legacy will skyrocket to legendary status. And if that victory sets the stage for a super fight with Ilia Topuria, the MMA world may witness one of the most historic and defining clashes in combat sports history.